"You think you've won, Derrick?" she whispered, smirking as she signed the divorce papers, her lover watching from across the table. She had no idea that the man sitting across from her had already turned her secret affair into a ticking time bomb, one that would explode in front of everyone she loved. What followed wasn't just revenge, it was art. Viewers, have you ever been betrayed so deeply that you decided silence would speak louder than rage? Tell me, what would you have done in Derrick's place? Subscribe, like, comment and watch till the ending to share this interesting story to family and friends. My name is Derrick Lawson. I'm 35 years old, a civil engineer by trade, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, now living in Charlotte. If anyone asked, I'd tell them I moved here for work, new contracts, fresh start, but the truth is simpler. I ran. I ran from the woman I loved, from the house that used to smell like paint and cinnamon candles, and from the man I became in the process of losing her. When I met Tasha, she was painting on a street corner in downtown Atlanta, barefoot, smudged with blue and gold acrylic. She had this confidence, the kind that makes you forget your own name for a moment. I asked to buy the painting she was working on. She laughed and said, "You don't buy a piece that isn't finished." That should have been my first warning. Tasha never finished anything she started. Not art, not promises, not even love. But back then I didn't see the pattern. I saw passion. I saw someone who needed grounding, and I thought I could be her foundation. I used to bring her lunch to her studio, surprise her with brushes, even converted our guest room into a small gallery space. Every brushstroke she made felt like a piece of us. We built a life together, messy, beautiful, loud. I believed in it. Until small things started to shift. She began staying out late, saying she was working with clients. She stopped painting at home. The warmth in her voice turned into excuses. I'd come home to cold dinners and a colder bed. I convinced myself it was the stress of her upcoming art exhibit. I even helped design the layout of her gallery showcase, not knowing that the man funding it was the one she was really spending her nights with. I used to think betrayal would be loud, screaming, slammed doors, broken glass. But no, it was quiet. It was her humming softly while texting someone else. It was her calling me baby, with the same lips that whispered another man's name. The night I heard his voice on her phone, everything inside me went still. It wasn't anger, not yet. Just clarity. I heard him say, "You looked stunning last night." Her reply was a whisper, but I caught it. "You shouldn't call me when he's home." That's when I knew. I stood in the doorway for a long time after she hung up. She turned, smiled like nothing had happened, and asked about my day. I smiled back, calm, steady, practiced. I didn't say a word. Because right then I made a silent promise. I wouldn't shout. I wouldn't cry. I would wait. And when the time came, I would make sure both of them remembered my silence for the rest of their lives. The next morning I woke up before Tasha. She was curled up beside me, her phone half hidden beneath the pillow, face turned away. I watched her chest rise and fall, that calm rhythm that used to mean peace to me. Now it only felt like deceit wrapped in skin. I wanted to reach for her phone to see the truth written in pixels, but I didn't. Not yet. I needed something more solid than words on a screen. After she left for her studio, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open and a mug of cold coffee beside me. My hand trembled slightly as I typed "mini hidden camera" into the search bar. It felt wrong, invasive, but betrayal changes the way a man defines wrong. I found a small, motion-activated one disguised as a wall clock. By noon it was delivered. By 2 it was mounted in her studio, above the shelves of paint she rarely used anymore. I told myself it was just to ease my mind. A foolish lie, but it got me through the day. That evening she came home humming again, smelling of vanilla and turpentine. Her laughter felt forced, like an actor repeating lines. She asked about dinner, kissed my cheek, and said she was exhausted. I studied her face under the kitchen light. No guilt, no remorse. Just smooth confidence, the kind people have when they think they've fooled the world. When she went to shower, I sat in the living room staring at the blank TV screen. My reflection looked like someone else, someone colder. I didn't recognize the man staring back. Later that night, when she fell asleep beside me, I turned on my laptop and accessed the footage. The studio came to life on my screen. At first, nothing. Just her painting, brushing her hair back, pacing. Then the door opened. He entered. Tall, clean-cut, maybe mid-40s. His presence filled the room like he belonged there. She didn't flinch. She smiled, that soft, real smile I hadn't seen in months. He said something I couldn't hear, and she laughed, playfully swatting at him. Then he reached out, wiped a bit of paint from her cheek, and leaned in. She didn't move away. I felt my stomach drop, like gravity had turned against me. It wasn't just a kiss. It was how she melted into it. Familiar. Practiced. Like they'd done it before, many times. I paused the footage. Her hand rested on his chest, her wedding ring glinting in the light. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room, but instead I just stared. The silence in our apartment was deafening. She came home hours later, smiling, saying she'd worked late. I smiled too. I even asked if she wanted tea. My voice sounded steady, almost cheerful. But in my head, I could still see that man's hand on her face, the same face that now looked at me with feigned innocence. That night I didn't sleep. I just lay there, eyes open, watching the ceiling while she dreamed beside me. The next morning, when she kissed me goodbye, I whispered softly against her ear, words she didn't even notice. Go ahead, Tasha. Keep painting your lies. I already knew how this canvas would end. I didn't confront her that morning. I couldn't. Not because I was afraid of her answer, but because I already knew it wouldn't be the truth. People like Tasha never admit guilt, they rewrite it. I'd seen my father go through the same storm years ago, and I swore I'd never drown the way he did. He was a quiet man, a pastor with more faith in forgiveness than wisdom in human nature. I was 12 when I found him sitting in the dark, staring at a photo of my mother and her friend from the choir. He didn't yell. He didn't throw anything. He just said, "Never fight a snake in the dark, son. Wait for daylight, that's when you strike." He meant it as advice. Back then I didn't understand. But now it made perfect sense. So I waited. That day I went to work like nothing was wrong. I smiled during meetings, joked with my team, even grabbed lunch with a client. But every laugh felt hollow, every handshake fake. The image of Tasha kissing that man replayed in my head like a loop I couldn't pause. When I got home, she was there, hair tied up, paint on her hands, pretending to be the same woman who used to light up my world. She greeted me with a soft, "Hey baby," and for a moment I wanted to believe her again. But the truth had already taken root, and it grew fast, like poison ivy climbing my chest. "Rough day?" she asked, noticing the tension in my shoulders. "Just the usual," I said, forcing a smile. She leaned in to hug me and I froze. Her touch felt foreign, like being touched by a stranger wearing my wife's skin. That night I made dinner, poured her wine, and listened to her talk about her new investor, a man named Marcus. My pulse tightened at the sound of his name. So that was him. Marcus. The one from the video. The man who now had what I built. She spoke about him with admiration, said he was helping her find her artistic confidence. I bit back a laugh. Confidence, is that what they called it now? After dinner, she went to bed early. I stayed up, staring at the flickering city lights through our window. I could hear her soft breathing from the bedroom. My hand tightened around my glass of whiskey. I could expose her now. I could show her the footage, scream, demand answers. But what would that change? She'd cry, lie, maybe even apologize. But she'd only hate me for ruining her illusion. No, that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted her to trust me again, to think I was blind, devoted, harmless. I wanted her to lower her guard until she couldn't see the trap closing around her. That night, I deleted the footage from my laptop and backed it up on a flash drive, hidden inside my toolbox in the garage. Then I crawled into bed beside her, wrapped an arm around her waist and whispered, "I love you." She murmured it back, half asleep. If only she knew that from that moment on, every "I love you" was a countdown. Please subscribe as you continue. 2 weeks passed before the perfect opportunity appeared. Tasha was standing by the kitchen counter one morning, scrolling through her phone when she suddenly looked up and said, "Marcus thinks we should host a dinner, for my art colleagues, a few potential investors. He said it'd be great for networking." Her tone was casual, but her eyes flickered. Guilt has a way of hiding behind excitement. I smiled, the same calm, patient smile I'd been wearing since the night I saw her betrayal unfold on my laptop. "That sounds great," I said. "Let me handle it." Her surprise was brief, but I caught it. "You sure? It's kind of last minute." "Of course. I want to help you shine," I replied, and I meant it, just not in the way she thought. That evening, I began planning the dinner. Every detail was precise: the wine, the lighting, the guest list. I even used her phone while she showered to message Marcus myself. "Dinner at our place Saturday night, can't wait to see you there." Winky face, I read it twice before sending it. My hands didn't even tremble. By Saturday the house was immaculate. Candles lined the shelves. Jazz hummed softly through the speakers. I'd chosen a suit she loved, navy, sharp, confident. Tasha looked beautiful too, in that green satin dress she used to save for our anniversaries. A small irony that made my chest ache. Around 7 the doorbell rang. Tasha froze mid-laughter, her hand tightening around her wine glass. I think that's Marcus, I said, pretending not to notice her face drain of color. She turned slowly, her smile faltering. Wait, you invited? I didn't let her finish. Of course. You've mentioned him so many times, I figured it was time I met the man who's been helping you so much. When she opened the door, Marcus stood there, tall, polished, carrying a bottle of red wine and that smug confidence of a man who'd never been caught. His eyes flickered between us. I extended my hand, firm, unflinching. Derrick Lawson, I said. Tasha's husband. He hesitated but shook my hand. Marcus Hale. Pleasure. Her voice trembled slightly. Marcus, this is unexpected. He laughed lightly. You invited me. Her lips parted, confusion, panic, guilt, all fighting for space. She looked at me, searching my face for signs of rage, but I gave her nothing. Just calm politeness. The evening went on. Guests filled the room, laughter echoing, the scent of roasted lamb and expensive wine in the air. But beneath the music and conversation, tension pulsed like an unspoken drumbeat. I watched them from across the table, the subtle glances, the way her shoulders tensed when his hand brushed hers by mistake. She was unraveling and I didn't need to do a thing. When I raised my glass, the room quieted. To loyalty, I said, my gaze locked on hers. In art, in business, and in love. Marcus chuckled, oblivious. Tasha swallowed hard. It was only the beginning. The snake was out in the daylight now, and I was just getting started. Marcus's presence at that dinner changed the air in the room. It wasn't just tension anymore, it was static, electric, like something waiting to explode. He moved with easy arrogance, the kind of man used to being admired. The guests loved him instantly, laughing at his jokes, clinking glasses to his stories. But Tasha couldn't hide. Her smile trembled at the edges, her fingers fidgeted against her napkin. Every time his hand brushed hers, she flinched. I watched quietly, savoring every second. You two seem to have a great partnership, one of her colleagues remarked. Marcus grinned. We do. She's one of the most talented artists I've ever worked with. Worked with? I repeated softly, raising an eyebrow. His eyes flicked to me, uncertain whether I meant it as a compliment or something else. He smirked. Yes. We spend a lot of time together. Long nights, big ideas. Tasha's fork froze midair. Marcus, she began, but I cut in smoothly. That's the thing about creativity, I said, smiling at him. It needs intimacy. Trust. He chuckled, not noticing her pale face. Exactly. You get it? Oh, I do, I replied. The others laughed, toasting to art and ambition, but Tasha's laughter didn't join. She stared into her wine like it might swallow her whole. I leaned back, watching them both. Her hands shook slightly as she lifted her glass. I reached across the table, resting my hand over hers. Relax, love, I said warmly. You've earned tonight. Her eyes darted up, searching mine for anger, but there was none. Only calm. That made her more afraid than rage ever could. Hours passed, the music slowed, and people began leaving. Marcus lingered, his confidence slipping into something smug. When the last guest left, he poured himself another drink, ignoring the look on her face. Well, he said, leaning against the counter, that went better than expected. Tasha's voice dropped to a whisper. Marcus, you should go. What? Afraid your husband might notice something? I smiled faintly. Oh, I notice a lot. Marcus looked at me, eyebrows raised. I like a man who can take a joke. He didn't see the way her hand gripped the table, white-knuckled. I tilted my glass toward him. Let's toast again to honesty. Tasha's voice cracked. Derrick, please. Marcus laughed. Oh, come on, babe, he's joking. The word babe dropped like a bomb between us. The room fell silent. The candles flickered, throwing shadows against her face. What did you just call her? I asked quietly. Marcus hesitated. It's just a slip of the tongue. Right? I said softly. Funny thing about slips, they always reveal the truth. Her breath came out shaky. Derrick, stop, you're embarrassing me. I nodded slowly. You're right. I turned to Marcus, smiling faintly. Let's make her comfortable then. Before she could speak, Marcus, too drunk, too arrogant, leaned forward and kissed her. Time stopped. The clink of his glass, the soft sound of her muffled gasp, the way her hand pushed weakly at his chest. And me standing still, silent, watching. When he pulled back, his grin faltered. Because I wasn't shouting. I wasn't throwing punches. I was calm. Dead calm. You're right, I said quietly, setting down my drink. That is embarrassing. She stood frozen, trembling. Derrick, please? But I'd already taken out my phone. Since honesty's on the menu, I said, let's share a little art, shall we? With one tap, the television screen behind them flickered to life. The footage began to play. The studio. The painting. The kiss. The laughter. Every gasp, every whisper projected larger than life. The room filled with the sound of their betrayal. Marcus turned white. What the hell? Tasha screamed, lunging for the remote, but I stepped between her and the screen. No, I said softly. You've hidden this long enough. Now everyone gets to see your masterpiece. She broke then, sobbing, shaking, the weight of humiliation crushing her voice. Marcus cursed under his breath, his arrogance crumbling into panic. Turn that off, he shouted. Why? I said, smiling faintly. It's beautiful. Look at the passion, the depth, the deceit. It's almost poetic. He grabbed his coat, muttering, You'll regret this. Oh, I already did, I said quietly. Months ago. He stormed out and the door slammed like a gunshot. Tasha fell to her knees, crying, trying to touch my hand. Derrick, please, I made a mistake. I stepped back. You didn't make a mistake, Tasha. You made a choice. I left her there, shaking in the dim candlelight, her reflection distorted on the black TV screen. By morning, word had spread. Marcus's company imploded when the files I'd sent to his business board revealed the fraudulent valuations he'd been hiding, all traced back through Tasha's emails. She lost her contracts. Her gallery closed within a week. I moved out without a word. No fight, no note. Just silence. Because silence, I learned, is the sharpest weapon. Months later in Charlotte, peace felt strange. I'd rebuilt my life from dust. New job, new city, new apartment. But sometimes, when the wind carried the faint smell of turpentine, I'd remember her. I'd see her kneeling in that dim room, realizing the cost of deceit. Then the letter arrived. White envelope. No return address. Just my name. Inside, one line written in her familiar looping script. You think it's over, Derrick? You don't know what I've done. I read it twice. Then again. For a long moment I just stood there, feeling the world tilt slightly. A dozen questions clawed at me. What had she done? To me? To herself? To someone else? I placed the letter in my desk drawer, unopened since. But some nights, when the city outside my window hums low and the shadows move across the walls, I can almost hear her voice again. The same voice that once whispered love, now whispering something darker. And I wonder, maybe the story isn't over after all. Maybe the real revenge hasn't even begun. Like, comment, share and subscribe for more interesting stories.